Welcome to Industrial Marketing Live, the interactive webinar series hosted by Industrial Marketing Collective. Like Alan said, we're here to help you make connections, learn, and get results for your business. And I'm Peyton Warren. If you haven't met me before, I'm the marketing director at the industrial marketing agency Gorilla 76 and one of your IMC Live hosts. Today, we've got a special guest, which I love. We've got Grace Halverson, a senior writer here at our agency and a cleanup expert, which is great because we are diving into the trends right now, true marketers that we are. And the trendy topic of the season is spring cleaning. So we're going to talk about spring cleaning marketing edition today. Things like refreshing your content, cleaning up your CRM, making sure that you're doing impactful work, all things that you can be doing to clean up your to-do list and just kind of maybe crowd sharing some ideas of where you can start. So Grace, before we jump into all of that, you want to introduce yourself to the crew here?
Yeah, I think you did a great job. But yeah, no, hi, I'm Grace. I've been on here a couple times before. Excited to be here again. Yeah, no, senior writer in my free time, and that's really all you need to know about me.
Yeah, you've been working on how many novels at this point? Two that you've
Two,
yeah, two. Yeah,
two.
awesome. Yeah, very cool. So if you ever want to talk about self-publishing too, Grace has a lot of resources on that side of things that she shared with us once during a lunch and learn here at Gorilla.
You
And
did, yes.
yeah, fascinating. Well, with that, obviously, Grace, you're very familiar with content. One of the things that you've done here at Gorilla is you've helped clean up our own website, something that's still in the works, actually. Website projects, am I right? They'll be the death of me. But they do take a lot of cleanup, making sure that you're maintaining them. But when it comes to spring cleaning, when you think about that, like where do you even start when you have like maybe a little bit of free time? Uh, haha, that comes your way in the spring season, or maybe you're just feeling extra motivated to tidy things up in your workplace. Uh, where do you suggest folks start?
Well, as a content person, I'm always going to say start with your content because you can get some quick and easy wins out of that. You can also get some things that are going to take a little bit, longer to do, but like you can get some nice quick things if you just kind of go through what you have, evaluate what you're using and what you're not using, and maybe why you're not using it. Is it just kind of old? Is it out of date? Do you need to update any links? Is like how you're talking about a specific product in there, not how you talk about it anymore? It's just it's a really nice place because then once you actually do that, you can use that content in campaigns. You can reshare it with people in like sales brochures and on social media, and there's just a lot of options you can use to make sure, like, once you have solid content that you are confident is ready to see the world again.
Mm-hmm. So why would we even go about this effort? You talked about how it could be easy, could be hard, but why bother?
Well, you already put so much time into creating it in the first place, and you might as well expand your arsenal as much as you can and just get the most, the biggest bang for your buck there. If it'll take like 20 minutes to make a piece of content you spent hours on 2 years ago working, like get that up and going again and like actually be able to use it again, like that's worth the time to not have to write an entirely new piece of content that might do roughly the same thing when you could just fix what you already have.
Yeah, at a certain point, that old content might become more of a detriment than a help for you if the links are broken or things like that are going
Yes.
wrong.
Oh, yes. Do not be afraid to murder your darlings. Sometimes it's just not worth saving the hours. It's just not going to be worth it. Like sometimes there's content pieces you're like, wow, this was based on some like third party data from 10 years ago. And the like having to find refreshed versions of that data out and the internet is just going to be way more time than it's worth. So like maybe we just kill this piece. Maybe we just, grab a snippet here and pop that into something else and call it a day.
Hmm.
And then redirect, right?
Yes.
Because like I think
Yes.
part of like this, like the cleanup is making sure that you're, I guess like the way that my Marine dad used to always say is like, do it if you're gonna do it right, sort of thing. And I think that's the biggest uh takeaway I'd like everyone to take from this conversation is, this is a time to make something work better, and leave it better than you found it. So if you're going to tackle a piece of content, go through it meticulously and just make sure that, if you are killing that darling, then you're redirecting it to a relevant piece of content, and, maintaining any sort of SEO value that you have there. And then, like Grace said, keeping the maybe a paragraph that's still really relevant. I think like another piece here is that companies change their messaging over time too. So, something that might have worked for you really, really well in the past. I can think of an example here at Gorilla 76. We created Joe Sullivan, one of our founders. He wrote a really, really detailed article on our website, like the Industrial Marketing Guide. And that it was like 8 steps or something. I don't know, but it was giving like all of this advice that we don't even give anymore as an agency. And it was getting a lot more clicks than maybe we realized it was getting. And but then we noticed it starting to like kind of drop off. So, we figured that out by auditing what we had, auditing our content, looking at the traffic trends, looking at where our conversions were coming from. What was their first page seen? How did they get to our website organically, sort of thing. And then, we figured out that content was really valuable for us. We rewrote it, and with just a little bit of TLC, it kind of climbed back up the ranks in terms of positioning on the SERP. So yeah, well worth the time if you are jumping into the right pieces of content.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of an audit, though, how do we even go about that? What are the steps? What are the things you need to remember?
Yeah, I mean, in Grace, feel free to jump in here wherever.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, the first place I start when I'm thinking content is organic, because I mean, especially if it's content on your website. So I guess I should clarify. I start with like web content, digital assets there that are accessible to like the greater public. So I look at organic traffic, like where folks are coming. I will filter by landing page, so first page seen sort of situation. Export that from your Google Analytics and start to kind of filter through. All right, like what pages are folks landing on most often? And then if you have conversions or like events set up in your Google Analytics where you can see what pages are then resulting in eventual conversions, I would layer in that information, because it's one thing to look at like, that kind of like top of funnel, like I guess like indicator that you're getting traffic, but then you'd want to dive a little bit deeper and see, all right, which pieces of content are actually resulting in the desired action, which is a request for quote or a contact form fill or a request for demo sort of situation. And then once you have that information layered in, you can really start to filter out all of the maybe less impactful content and focus on the things that are driving the most results. And you might even figure out that this piece of content that you thought was really valuable, like in Gorilla's case, this industrial marketing guide, you thought was really valuable, has been losing traction over time. And that's like right there. You're like, okay, laser focus. That's a piece that I'd want to get into. But I don't think it just has to be web content that you're auditing. I think like if you want to go really technical, like that's an example of like an organic content audit. But like, Grace is saying, like, there's lots of other content that you're creating. And you mentioned even like sales enablement materials. I mean, what do you have in your work drive? Like what do you have in the cloud drive that is maybe not even being utilized fully because it's just a sales deck, right? I mean, what's your take?
Or ask your team, what are they sending to people? Has anybody else looked at that in the past year, 2 years, 6 months? Has it changed? Because like, I mean, at a place I used to work, there were people, sales folks, still sending out the branding from 10 years ago on documents that like we haven't been green. Like our logo hasn't been green since like I was in high school. Why is it still on branding materials? So like if that's still there, then the content that's actually in that is probably also not stuff that you really should be sending out, or like maybe it was accurate like one small step change ago, but there's been one too many small step changes since that was made, that like you need to fix that, because it's not accurate anymore, and that's not helpful to anyone. So seeing what people are actually sending to prospects, what your team is using, that can also kind of help guide what's coming in organically, but also like what you actually use on a regular basis.
Mhm. Are there any tools to help with like finding broken links or things of that nature that you can use to scrape your website, or is it mostly a manual endeavor?
I'm sure there are. I know I've used interns and I've done it myself, just clicking on things to see if they go where they're supposed to go, or back adding links to old content so you can get new content in there. But like, I would love to hear if there's a tool for that that could help save time from that.
Yeah, if anyone knows, put it in the chat.
Yeah, I've personally used SEMrush to like crawl the website and then identify different like broken links or just like issues. It'll tell you through that, like with a crawling bot. But Google Search Console also will give that information to you if you've got like, your sitemap up there. It'll start to tell you if you're running into any issues or if something's broken. So those are two spots, but if someone else has a favorite, please do share it in the chat, or another tool for specifically for broken links. Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah. On another thing we haven't talked about though are images. We talk about branding a little bit, but images tend to come a long way, in how you can present them on your website and the best way to package them and stuff like that. So yeah, how do you go about thinking of image enhancement?
I mean, one of the first things that like I've had clients be like, "Hey, this image you've got that you're using in these campaigns, those people don't work here anymore, and we'd really like to like not put them on, on blast on social media, like in our ads, or sometimes like it's just refreshing pictures too. Or like, oh, we were really getting this product up on the site quickly when it was new. We didn't have images, but now we actually have it running at multiple locations. We can actually get in the field images we want to swap in. Um, but yeah, no, I don't. If anybody else has any ideas for like a solid process for doing that, like that's handy. Other than looking through and being like, I don't. I think we have better pictures than that, which is I feel like what kind of happens half the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I always mention this, but when it comes to images, I think like one of the best things that you could think to do like with this like spring cleaning time is like maybe establish some sort of like feedback loop with your sales team or someone who's like going on site, seeing your products or services in action, and like making sure that they know that, hey, I would really love a picture of this. So maybe like your spring cleaning is just making a shot list of what's missing from your website and or from like any of the collateral that you have, and sharing that information with the team. I know sometimes that those requests fall on deaf ears, but if you do take the time to make a shot list, uh, better chances of getting photos that are going to enhance your content overall. Zach, I think you said the same thing about just images being important too. So, uh,
Right. Yeah. What, like you said, Peyton, if nobody knows what you want, there's no chance you're going to get it. So at least ask. Like,
for
you
sure.
got to give yourself a shot there.
And I don't want this whole conversation to revolve around digital either. Like I think Emily, if you'd be willing to unmute and come on, I think it's like it just speaks like to the testament of like how much a marketer does in their role, right? When you start thinking about like we've been DMing on LinkedIn, me and Emily, about just like getting stuff shipped to the right place and then a package doesn't arrive. Like there's just like there's actual tangible things that a marketer needs to manage. And so you were saying you're cleaning out a closet.
Yes. Hi, can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a closet in our back, of course. You probably all have one too, but it's just like the dumping ground for all things marketing. Like there's, the bookshelf with brochures and, you know, catalogs. We just got in this year's shipment of 2025 catalogs, but we have the ones from like 2023 left over, and gonna have to probably recycle all of those. Old backdrops that have, kind of fallen apart at this point and we're not really using anymore because we got new ones. But yeah, it's just that closet. So I've been slowly working my way through getting rid of stuff in there because, we're not going to use any of it. Then,
Have you have you had to stop anyone from using any of it? Like someone goes, "Oh, I need something," go to grab it, and like, "Oh no, you can't use
uh,
it." Like,
not really. Not really, because everybody, of course, just asks, "Hey, marketing, do you have this sort of thing? Do we have this?" They're not gonna, you know, search for it themselves, or a lot of them are remote, so they don't know what we have in the office. And as the, marketing person who is there most frequently, I am called on to go check in the back. So, we never have that concern. There was, I mentioned in the chat, like posters that I threw out recently because they had, old product, an old product we don't sell on it anymore. Um, but we also have like an updated poster that we now use that is, more updated. And, they looked very similar and they were in, very similar, packaging. Like in the packaging we received them in. So we, for the sake of not getting those mixed up, I was just like, all right, it's time. Let's just get rid of all the old ones. So I spend an afternoon just like, carrying them out because, they're giant and they're heavy. So I was like, I can't lift it all by at once. And that was how I spent a good chunk of my afternoon last week.
Yeah, I knew it was happening. I knew the spring cleaning. It's something about the weather change. It's just like you've gotta sweep away the dust. No, I think that, and Alan, you made a good point. Like do folks come after this stuff? And Emily, you've been at your company for years at this point, and so folks know you and like know that they can go to you as like a point person for those things, which is a blessing and a curse, I'm sure. But I think like making sure that you're getting rid of anything that is no longer like your position or your focus, or like putting those things away so that you can control the message and like the brand image, I think would be really is very, very worth your time to do, because you don't want something to get out there that is no longer the image that you're trying to present. Just starts to undermine the brand after a while. A few other things that oh, sorry, does someone want to jump in?
Oh, that was me just being like, yeah, absolutely. Got to do the same thing with like all of your resources that outline your positioning as well, even if they're just internal documents and they're not going to see anyone else. If that's not how you're still talking about yourself, then like it's probably important to update that too. Even if it all just lives up here, if you have someone new come in or something changes, it's good to document that. But I think we're getting into that more later. Where were you going with that, Peyton?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think like you were talking a little, well, I've been kind of alluding to positioning and like just like these strategic like refreshes. You know, maybe it was Alan who mentioned like or I think this was you, Grace, ask your sales team what they're actually sending. And if you can insert yourself to help, tailor that sales deck or add the most up-to-date information, or maybe learn something from their sales deck that is working really well with customers and pull that out in, like, it's not always us assigning the message. Sometimes it's us interviewing our customers and reviewing the stuff that's like moving the needle for sales and weaving that back into the rest. But yeah, a sales deck refresh, I think, would be, or at least an audit review would be a good place to go as well.
yeah. Before we move on, I think Megan made a good point in the chat about, while you're doing this, being sure to document these things and try to save what would be useful for you later. So, Megan, would you want to come on and talk about your efforts there?
Yeah, sure. So we have a very old company. It's 95 years and it's my family's business. And so we have a ton of older stuff that we actually reuse for anniversaries and historical things. And I've like created videos with old pictures because sometimes, we have family members who, like, their dad used to work there and we have old pictures of their dad. And so it's kind of cool to kind of capture those and keep those things. And of course, a lot of the people who are my predecessors love to keep things. I'm sure some of you guys have experienced that. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but there does come to a point where we do have to like decide, okay, we used it for this thing, I've captured it, I've digitized it, now I'm going to throw it away. It's kind of what we do. But there's a lot to go through for sure.
Yeah, and maybe part of your refresh process can be thinking, what are we doing this year that relates to something that we might have done it a year prior that could help tell the story better by linking these two things?
Right. Like, for example, some of the stuff that I've used recently is we have a machine and it's hit its 40-year anniversary. So like having an anniversary for your product, I think is a really fun one. So all the old content that we have, or like bringing up like an old ad that's really funny now, like the early 2000s ads were a little bit like inappropriate and but it's funny, so like re-highlighting those things have been kind of fun.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So, Grace, you have gone through this process once or twice before. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience with Atmos?
So Peyton and I actually, like, I don't know, a year ago, worked with our client Atmos on launching a new product. And it was like brand new, got to get something on the website. Like we helped name the thing. Like it was that kind of new. And so we were working to get product pages, case studies, FAQs, anything we could up on that site, basically as quickly as possible. So they had places to direct people. And then, jump to a year later, the product has evolved. They understand better how it works now. They have a better idea of what the specs actually are in practice, as opposed to what they guessed they would be and what they were after testing and building the first couple ones. So we worked with their team to go back through and had their SME read through everything and be like, okay, yep, nope, that's not right anymore, or we have better pictures to swap in here. You can see it in context, or like, hey, maybe don't say that. We decided that's not the best way to talk about it. So like we went through that and cleaned up their site, and so we're getting them ready to continue pushing this super fun leachate product to continue helping landfills treat their leachate. But yeah, no, it evolved over the year that we had it. So after we pushed to get it up and get it out to people, we had to go through and change a few things.
Mm-hmm. How long do you think it's taken you? How many hours?
Well, most of it was probably on the internal Atmos team to actually read through it. But at the same time, though, we had like a case study, 3 articles, and an FAQ page and the product page. So there wasn't a ton out there to really go through and change. But like actually making the fixes themselves, it was a matter of logging into WordPress and just deleting a couple things and changing gear. Like it really wasn't that big of a lift for something that will help potential customers actually get accurate information about this product and not lead to questions like, well, it says on the website it can do this many gallons per day, but like now you're telling me it actually can do this many per day. Or like somebody seeing, like, I think another one of the problems that they had was actually they were like kind of cutting it off too high. Like, oh, if you're not needing this many gallons per day, this isn't for you. But they lowered that. So it might lead people to self-select out, being like, oh, well, I don't actually hit that number, so this is probably not something for me. But actually changing that to what was more accurate could help widen their customer pool. So something small like that could help them, get one more interested customer who might not have been there before.
For sure. I mean, I think it's really just having the conversation in the first place and like identifying, hey, like checking in. I think that's like marketing's role here is like, hey, we just created this content last year. Like you're aware that they're still testing the product. You're aware that they're still kind of like beta testing it here and there with different customers. Ask how it's going, and then when you hear something that's different than the initial positioning that you put in place for that product, that's where you're like, hey, should we like change this? You're saying this now, but we used to hear, we were saying this. So kind of identifying that, and then it puts you in a really good position as the marketer who's raising that to the greater team's attention too, because I would guess yes, the team was really excited about the content and the product launch and everything, but once like the product launch is done, the content's created, it's not something that like the VP of that product or the developer of that product is necessarily thinking about on a daily basis, like you would in a marketing seat about like what's on your website. So if you don't bring it to their attention, then that's how you get outdated stuff. And I think Chris, you've been in the chat saying you want to burn your website down sort of situation. So, like I get it. It's happened so fast. It's a lot to maintain these digital assets for sure.
And rather than just like updating outdated information, there's also a chance there you can talk to your sales team and be like, hey, what questions are you actually getting from people about this? Is there any way we can address those in this content now that we're taking a minute to refresh it? That could also just give you a chance to improve rather than just fix what's currently there.
So a few other things that we've talked about, and it's something we wanted to do, if you guys are down, is we actually put together like a really brief like spring cleaning checklist. And we can share that in the chat and if we all want to just kind of brainstorm ideas to put on here, that would be awesome. I'll let Sarah drop that in for us. And while we're looking at that, a few other things that have come up while we were talking about like what would we clean here at Gorilla? What would we suggest we clean? Another was subscriptions. We've mentioned SEMrush, but like, hey, are you even using SEMrush if you've got the paid version? Are you using the paid version of Hotjar? Do you want to keep all these tools? Like, did you sign up for a free trial of something and then now you're not using it? All of those little like cost saving things that you can look at and take ownership of your marketing budget in a way, gives you more fodder when you're asking for maybe an increase for paid media spend or something. You say, hey, I cut costs here. So I'd like to use this money instead. That's a much easier conversation to have with your leadership than just asking for more budget. And if it's available. Conversions was another thing that we've talked about. When someone fills out a form on your website, is it really going to the right person? Like, are you getting all of those requests? Is there a way that you can start to filter those to different people, an inside sales team or, a specific department based on the form inquiry? Another thing to consider. Are you actually tracking all of your conversions? I mentioned the Google Ads or Google Analytics events. Do you have events set up for all the different types of like conversions you want to track? I've seen that time and time again with audits where you're like, oh, we've got, this type of form fill. We've got, here's an example. We've got a design form fill, and then we have a request for consultation. We're tracking the request for consultation, but we're not tracking the design request. And, that design request might not be quite as high intent as a request for quote, but still signals that, this content or this, experience on your website is triggering a hand raise of sorts. So things like that would be really, really important. Another one, and Grace and Alan, you feel free to jump in here, but another one is like, when's the last time you posted on LinkedIn for your company page? maybe creating an outline of what you want to post or what you want to talk about, similar to what we do for this show. Like we do this show twice a month, and we step back and we say, what do we want to talk about? This topic came up through like we're talking about spring cleaning. It's March 20th. It's spring. Like you can see the through line right there of how like our brainstorm morphed this topic into existence, right? And so like the same thing can happen with your company page content.
On that note too, is your company description accurate? Is that how still you're talking about your company? Like I think we found descriptions of some of our podcasts somewhere that listed hosts from like 2 iterations ago that just like, oops, we never actually updated that, and it's changed twice since then. We also had a situation with the client recently. No one could get into their YouTube. Like, being able to get into all of your accounts is also a good start for making sure everything looks good. Because yeah, no, we're like, well, I have no idea how to get in, because sometimes logins are just attached to like specific email addresses, and then a person leaves, and then how do you get in?
That happens
For
in my
real.
personal life all the time.
Yeah. Your password keeper, another thing. So I'm just looking through the chat. The chat's been busy this morning. But yeah, folks, feel free to unmute. What should we add to this list? I saw email list was the most recent one that I just noticed. So email segmentation, maybe cleaning up. I don't know how many of you have HubSpot, but they just changed their billing for marketing contacts. Or they're in the process of changing their billing. So marketing contacts in there, you pay for marketing contacts, you don't pay for non-marketing contacts. So anyone that's in your CRM that you don't plan to email, maybe their email's already bouncing, maybe they've already unsubscribed. Can you shift them to be a non-marketing contact and not pay for that record? That could be a nice thing to do. What else is on folks' mind?
Peyton, I saw people talking about YouTube videos. They're
Mm,
still worth having up there.
yeah. But who I saw somebody post in there about maybe it was Joel about what he's doing, because you can't necessarily redirect or replace a YouTube video. I'm trying to find that comment, but yeah, if that was you, feel free to unmute and share how you've been kind of like back end redirecting your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it was me that posted. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Joel.
Okay. Hey. Yeah, so it's one of my frustrations with YouTube. Prior to having like a regular job in marketing, I did video production. So my personal stuff I was always doing on Vimeo, because you had that kind of control. You could replace a file. So it was like, oh, new version of a corporate video, just replace it and the link stays the same. All your analytics stay. It was great. But people aren't on Vimeo as much. So YouTube is still that, I think it's number 2 is like a search engine. So got to be where the people are. So YouTube is where, you tend to actually post a video, but there you can't replace it. So what I tend to do is you have their like the tiles, or you've got like a link you can put on. So there's a couple different spots you can link to other videos. So I'll go in and do those, replace, like put the link to the new version, update the description, kind of put in a few spots like this is the old version, and then mark it as unlisted instead of going to private. If it's private, only you logged in can access it, but unlisted is just not going to be linked anywhere. But then if anybody has linked or embedded that video elsewhere on the internet outside of your control, that video doesn't die. So put it there, and you put all over it every single possible way of, go here to see the new version. And then anywhere you have control, you can update that link, but then you cover your bases for anywhere that you don't have the control.
I think that is so smart. I think one of the most underused parts of YouTube, because YouTube is a search engine in and of itself. So like Joel, like just like you're thinking about it that way, right? You're thinking about it as if it were a destination on your own website. Sure, you can't control the URL like you could on your website, but like it's still your content that you put up there, and you're creating new pathways for that person to engage with. So like, yeah, like, and I think like the way that you're doing it with all the interactive components of the video is really smart too. So like you're putting the tiles in place. Time consuming maybe, right? But like you've got a video background, so maybe it's not so like time consuming for you. But even just like posting like a link in the description gets you a step closer, right? Where you're saying, hey, this is like, get our most up-to-date version of this. You know, works too. But I really love how you're using the tiles and like the interactive elements in those videos. That's super smart.
Yeah, I thought Larry Fisher had a good point in the chat too about SEO review and persona review, which I hadn't really thought of before. But you know, like we've worked with some clients that have personas that were obviously written 10, 15 years ago. They use assumptions about the technology that certain people use that is obviously out of date. Yeah, they have cultural references and stuff that is not up to date. But then maybe more importantly, maybe the market has shifted a lot over the course of 10 years, and the type of people that are the best fit for your product has changed, or they're the most in demand for your product has changed. So keeping that up to date within the team, I would think would be a big help. Although I don't know how many people actually look at those personas outside of marketing.
Yeah, and Larry, I think that was you who added that. If you're interested in sharing a little bit more about how you guys are maybe using the personas and just like
Yeah, sure.
why that's
I mean,
worth your while.
yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we review our personas with all our clients just so that they, you know, because things do change, and then often it just gets a deeper understanding. You know, the first time you do it with a client, they tell you this is who their persona is, and they just don't think as deeply the first time around. So by the second year or even third year, they're thinking of additional, uh, you know, aspects that they hadn't thought about. So just an opportunity to go deeper as well as review anything that's changed.
Yeah, it's like once you start to really think about the voice of customer and how that actually impacts the success of your marketing materials, you know, I think that gets folks more excited about a tool like a persona. When you layer in all of the emotional like triggers or things there, like you really start to try and understand the person, the individual of your customer, your marketing's just better. I mean,
We
Alan, what
use
do you
it. We use the persona you know, worksheet pretty extensively when we create our marketing content. So I have to have that for new people who are coming into, you know, the company, or if I use any contractors, that sort of thing. So we have to keep that really up to date so that the people who are creating the content are aware of things. So it's really important to make sure it's right and that hasn't gone out of date.
Yeah, I would just add that, you know, as we have economic changes and industrial tumult at times, that's going to make those emotional cues even more important. And those are going to be dependent on just where their market is at that point. So yeah, that's another good thing to keep in mind. Like the emotional cues, the potential might always be there, but what the market is causing to be the most poignant is going to change potentially even day to day these days. Who knows?
Right. It definitely affects your copy dramatically if you don't understand the emotional pain point you're trying to solve.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry.
All right. I am trying to keep up with the chat. Headshots have come up, email signatures, and we haven't even touched the CRM or ERPs yet. So maybe in our final few minutes, that's where we can focus the conversation. I see Emily's has done an ERP cleanup. I think I saw another comment about CRMs diving in there. Yeah, I think that when it comes to your CRM, we've already talked a little bit about forms, but I think like a big piece to think about cleanup wise is considering where all the data is coming from and maybe places where you're not collecting data. Like I think about inputs, I guess, as like the first step to a good CRM. And then the second step would be making sure that you have like an accurate place or like a consistent place that's your company language of where that data is going to get funneled into. So like if your sales team is handling all of these conversations offline, is there something you can do to pull in the relevant information that you need to your marketing automation platform or your CRM? You know, if you've got an ERP that's separate than your marketing automation platform or your CRM, is there something you can do to pull some of the relevant data that would help you enhance your marketing reporting from the ERP back into your marketing automation? You know, just kind of like looking at it from like a high level. And then, you know, everything we've said today kind of starts with an audit. So it's like, you know, starting at that high level, auditing what you have, auditing like the like considering all of the inputs and then where you want, like what you're trying to achieve. And then you can drill down into the activities. Yeah, it's a lot for the final couple minutes of a call, but that's where I would start. Anyone else have advice on the CRM or ERP angle? Grace's eyes got real big then.
Oh yeah, scary stuff.
For sure. Okay, well, what we're gonna do now is we will share that spring cleaning checklist. I'll go through this chat and we'll add all of your notes to that spring cleaning checklist, and we'll drop it into Circle, the Industrial Marketing Collective, where like in the resources section, so folks can access it. But obviously, you've got the link here. And maybe this is just a good place to start if you find that you have a little free time on your hands here in the coming weeks. But apart from that, we really appreciate you coming on the show, Grace. Thanks for sharing your experience and yeah, helping us figure out what to do next and maybe where to start.
Yeah, always happy to be on here and chat. And if you want to chat some more about it, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Always happy to message a bit.
Awesome. Yeah. Our next episode, everyone, is going to be on April 3rd, and it's at a special time. We're going to be meeting at 4 p.m. Eastern, or sorry, I was doing Eastern stuff this morning, 4 p.m. Central Time for like an IMC Live happy hour version of the show and a mystery topic. So we will send you guys some details about that. But if you can make it at 4 p.m. on April 3rd, we'd love to see you. And between now and then, I've already mentioned Circle IMC. So if you'd want to be part of the discussion boards there, just let us know. Visit industrialmarketingcollective.com or just ping Alan or me on LinkedIn and we'll get you set up. So you can continue to stay in touch with the friends you've made today. So thank you everyone for being so open and sharing your experience and, you know, just helping brainstorm maybe some good places to start this spring. So hope you all have a great rest of your week and we will see you next time.
Happy cleaning, everybody.